The final battle did not take place over Earth. It did not happen in disputed space or neutral territory. Admiral Morrison brought the full might of humanity's fleet to the Vorthak capital system of Vorthtar, where Emperor HFY waited with the last 30,000 ships of his once mighty empire. The human armada dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 15,000 ships arranged in battle groups that moved like a single organism. But these were not the same ships the Empire had faced at Earth. These were humanity's finest vessels, built in secret shipyards throughout the galaxy, and armed with weapons the Empire could not imagine. Emperor HFY stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Throne, and stared at the tactical display. The human fleet was half the size of his remaining forces. He should have felt confident. Instead, he felt only dread. "Signal the human commander," he ordered. "I will speak with them before this battle begins." Admiral Morrison's image appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, the bridge of her flagship hummed with quiet efficiency. "Emperor HFY," Morrison said. "I am Admiral Kate Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. I believe we need to talk." "You have come to my capital with your fleet," the Emperor replied. "What is there to discuss?" "Your surrender," Morrison said simply. "This war can end right now if you choose to make it end." The Emperor felt anger rise in his chest. "The Vorthak Empire does not surrender. We have 30,000 ships. You have 15,000. The advantage is ours." Morrison smiled sadly. "Your Majesty, with respect, you have learned nothing from this war. Numbers do not win battles. Technology does not win battles. The will to fight and the skill to fight win battles. Your people have lost both." "We shall see," the Emperor snarled. "All ships, attack formation, destroy the human fleet." The battle began exactly as Admiral Morrison had predicted. The Vorthak fleet advanced in massive formations, trying to use their numerical advantage to overwhelm human defenses. It was the same strategy they had used for 300 years against primitive enemies. It was completely useless against humans. Captain Greg Thompson's analysis proved correct. Empire technology was designed for intimidation, not warfare. Their massive ships made impressive targets, but could not maneuver effectively. Their powerful weapons were built to destroy defenseless targets, not fight mobile enemies. Human ships moved through the Vorthak formations like sharks through a school of fish. They struck precisely where the enemy was weakest, then vanished before Empire gunners could respond. Every human attack was coordinated with every other human attack. Every Empire response was confused and ineffective. "Their formation is collapsing," reported Captain Danny Foster as his fighter squadron carved through a Vorthak battle group. "They're trying to fight 15 separate battles instead of one coordinated engagement." Dr. Helen Price watched from her command ship as Vorthak weapons hammered human shields without effect. 20 years of studying Empire technology had paid off perfectly. Human defenses were specifically designed to counter Vorthak weapons. "Their guns might as well be shooting flowers at us," Helen reported. "Zero effective damage to any human vessel. But human weapons were devastating against Empire hulls. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries died in seconds under human fire. The technological advantage the Empire had enjoyed for so long was gone. Captain Steve Miller's Ghost Fleet struck at the heart of the Empire formation. Invisible, human ships appeared inside Vorthak defensive lines and began killing command vessels. Without their commanders, Empire battle groups fell apart into individual ships fighting their own desperate battles. "Command and control is broken," Steve reported. "They're fighting like a mob now, not like a military force." Emperor HFY watched his fleet disintegrate around him. Ship after ship appeared on his tactical display as red crosses marking their destruction. In 2 hours of battle, he had lost 10,000 vessels. The humans had lost less than 50. "This is impossible," he whispered. How can they be so superior? Because we have been preparing for this war our entire history, said a voice behind him. The Emperor turned to see Admiral Morrison standing on his bridge. Her soldiers had boarded his flagship without triggering a single alarm. His own security forces were nowhere to be seen. "How did you get aboard my ship?" the Emperor demanded. "The same way we got aboard every other Empire vessel," Morrison replied. "We are very good at boarding operations. Your people are not very good at preventing them." Captain Tony Shaw appeared beside Morrison. "Flagship is secured, Admiral. Minimal resistance. Most of the crew surrendered without fighting." Morrison nodded. "Emperor HFY, your fleet is defeated. Your military is broken. Your empire is finished. But your people do not have to die. You can end this right now." The Emperor looked at his tactical display. Of 30,000 ships, fewer than 5,000 remained. The rest were destroyed or surrendering. The greatest military force in galactic history had been crushed in a single afternoon. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Morrison activated a holographic projector. A map of the galaxy appeared, showing the current territory of the Vorthak Empire. "The Empire will withdraw to these 3 sectors," Morrison said, highlighting a small portion of their former territory. "All military expansion will cease. All aggressive activities against other species will end. Your remaining military forces will be reduced to defensive levels only. And if I refuse?" Morrison's expression did not change. "Then we will continue this war until every Empire ship is destroyed and every Empire world is occupied. The choice is yours." The Emperor stared at the map. 3 sectors out of 12. It was a massive reduction in Empire territory, but it was survival. "What guarantee do I have that you will honor this agreement?" "The same guarantee your victims had," Morrison replied. "None. But you will find that humans keep their promises. When we say we will leave you in peace if you stop being a threat, we mean it. And if we violate this agreement?" Morrison smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you will learn why it was a mistake to kill human children. This demonstration was us being merciful. Do not test what we are like when we are not feeling merciful." The Emperor understood. He activated his fleet communications system. "All ships. This is Emperor HFY. Cease fire. Stand down all weapons. Prepare to receive surrender terms." Throughout the Vorthtar system, Empire ships stopped fighting. The Great War was over. Dr. Nancy Williams began the process of negotiating the formal surrender. The terms were surprisingly generous. The Empire could keep its internal government. No war crimes trials, no occupying forces. The only requirement was that they never again threaten other species. "Why are you being so merciful?" asked Admiral Kethvar during the negotiations. "Because we are not conquerors," Nancy replied. "We are protectors. Our goal was never to destroy your empire. Our goal was to make sure you could never again do what you did to Mars." Captain Jim Davis documented the signing of the surrender agreement. Emperor HFY put his seal on a document that ended 300 years of Vorthak expansion and established humanity as the dominant military power in the galaxy. "Why did you let us keep our government?" the Emperor asked Admiral Morrison. "Because ruling other species is not our job," Morrison replied. "Our job is making sure no species becomes powerful enough to threaten the others. You are welcome to govern yourselves as long as you do not threaten anyone else." Commander Linda Jackson established the Galactic Monitoring Network. Human observation posts would watch every major military power in the galaxy. Any species that began building conquest fleets would receive a visit from the human navy. The message was clear. The galaxy was now under human protection. Captain Patricia Lee became the first human ambassador to the former Vorthak Empire. Her job was to help them transition from a military dictatorship to a peaceful civilization. "You must understand," she told the Emperor during their first official meeting. Humanity does not want to rule you. We want you to rule yourselves, but we will not allow you to rule others. 1 year after the war ended, Emperor Zexhai met with Admiral Morrison on the neutral world of Kepler Station. They sat in a simple conference room, former enemies now, bound by treaty. I have a question that has troubled me since our first meeting, the Emperor said. How long were you watching us? How long did you know this war was coming? Morrison considered her answer carefully. Since the day you first left your home system 800 years ago, we have been watching every aggressive species in the galaxy, waiting for them to become enough of a threat to require our attention. The Emperor felt a chill run down his spine. You have been planning for this war for 8 centuries? Not planning. Preparing. There is a difference. We hoped it would never be necessary, but when you killed those children on Mars, you made it necessary. Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES Liberty. The ship moved through space at high speed, heading back to Earth after another successful mission. Jake was tired. He had been dealing with alien politics for 3 years now, and it never got easier. The communication panel started beeping. Jake looked at Captain Lisa Hayes, who was standing next to his chair. She pressed a few buttons and frowned. It's from the Galactic Council, Lisa said. Priority 1 message. Jake felt his stomach drop. Priority 1 messages were never good news. He had only received 2 in his entire career as Earth's main ambassador to the galaxy. Both times, they meant trouble. Put it on screen, Jake said. The main display showed the official seal of the Galactic Council. 14 different alien symbols formed a circle around a central star. Jake knew each symbol by heart. The Zephyrian Empire's 4-armed warrior. The Crystalline Collective's geometric patterns. The Hive Queen's insect markings. All of them together meant the most powerful beings in the galaxy had something to say. The message began to play. A computer voice read the words in perfect English. Ambassador Morrison of the human species, you are required to appear before the Galactic Council in 72 standard hours. The matter concerns the final accord for human integration into galactic society. Failure to appear will result in immediate military action against all human worlds. The message ended. Jake stared at the screen for a long moment. Lisa walked over and put her hand on his shoulder. Final accord? She asked. What does that mean? Jake stood up and walked to the large window that showed the stars outside. He had heard rumors about something like this. Other species in the galaxy had been talking in private meetings. They were scared of humans, scared of how fast humanity had grown in space, scared of how well humans fought when they had to. It means they want to put us in a cage, Jake said. Make us weak so we can't threaten them anymore. Commander Ryan Clark entered the bridge. He was holding a data pad and looked worried. Ryan was in charge of intelligence for the human fleet. If he looked worried, things were very bad. Sir, we just got reports from our spy networks, Ryan said. Every major alien fleet in the galaxy is moving toward human space. The Zephyrians have 3,000 ships heading our way. The Crystalline Collective has 2,000. Even the smaller species are sending what they have. Jake felt cold. The entire human fleet had only 800 ships. They were good ships, with brave crews, but numbers mattered in space battles. How long before they reach our borders? Jake asked. 6 days, maybe 7 if we're lucky, Ryan replied. They're taking their time, making sure we see them coming. They want us to be afraid. Lisa checked her own console. Admiral Sullivan is calling from Earth Command. The screen changed to show Admiral Kate Sullivan sitting in her office on Earth. She looked tired and older than Jake remembered. The weight of command was heavy on her shoulders. Jake, I just got word about the summons, Kate said. The president wants you to go. He thinks we might be able to negotiate something. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Negotiate? Kate, they're bringing every ship they have to our doorstep. This isn't a negotiation. It's a surrender demand. Maybe, Kate said, but we have to try. If there's even a small chance we can avoid a war, we have to take it. Jake knew she was right. He also knew it was probably hopeless. The aliens had been planning this for months, maybe years. They had finally decided that humans were too dangerous to leave alone. 3 months ago, human ships had defeated the Ragnari, invasion fleet. The Ragnari were supposed to be some of the best fighters in the galaxy. They had never lost a major battle before humans came along. When news of their defeat spread, it changed everything. Suddenly, every alien species was looking at humans differently. Not as the new kids who needed protection. Not as junior partners who should be grateful for a place at the table. They saw humans as a threat that needed to be stopped. Jake had tried to explain to various alien leaders that humans didn't want to conquer anyone. Earth just wanted to explore the galaxy and find new homes for their growing population. But fear was stronger than logic. The aliens had decided to act before humans got too strong to stop. "I'll go," Jake said finally. "But I'm not going alone. I want General Pete Adams and Chief Diplomat Helen Martinez with me." "Done," Kate said. "Jake, be careful. Intelligence suggests this might be our last chance to avoid total war." The communication ended. Jake stood alone on the bridge while Lisa and Ryan worked at their stations. Outside the window, the stars looked the same as always, beautiful and distant and uncaring about the problems of tiny beings who flew between them. Jake thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea their entire future was about to be decided in a meeting room on an alien space station, about the human colonies spread across dozens of worlds, all of them now in danger. He thought about his daughter Sarah, who was starting her first year at university. She wanted to be a xenobiologist and study alien life forms. She thought the galaxy was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. Jake hoped she would still have that chance. "Set course for Nexus Prime," Jake told Lisa, "and send a message to Earth. Tell them to prepare for the worst." As the Liberty changed direction toward the Galactic Council's headquarters, Jake made a decision. He would listen to whatever the aliens had to say. He would consider their terms carefully. But if they thought humans would simply roll over and accept whatever scraps they were offered, they were about to learn something new about his species. Humans had never been good at accepting other people's definitions of their place in the world. They weren't about to start now. The Nexus Prime station was huge. Jake Morrison stared at it through the window of his shuttle as they got closer. The alien space station looked like a giant crystal tower floating in space. It stretched up and down for many kilometers. Lights blinked along its surface like stars. Around the station, alien warships waited in perfect formation. Jake could see the massive Zephyrian vessels with their sharp edges and weapon ports. The crystalline collective ships looked like floating gems that caught and reflected light. Smaller vessels from dozen other species filled the spaces between the larger ships. "Impressive," said General Pete Adams, who sat next to Jake. Pete was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. "They really want to make sure we get the message." Chief Diplomat Helen Martinez sat across from them, reading reports on her data pad. Helen was smart and calm under pressure. She had helped negotiate treaties with 6 different alien species over the past 5 years. "The formation is designed to intimidate," Helen said without looking up. "Each ship is positioned to show maximum firepower. Classic power display tactics." The shuttle docked with Nexus Prime. Jake and his team walked through corridors filled with aliens from across the galaxy. Most of them stared at the humans as they passed. Some looked curious. Others looked hostile. A few looked afraid. The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest room Jake had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows above. Rows of seats formed a circle around a central speaking area. Each section was designed for a different alien species, with different atmosphere controls and gravity settings. Jake took his seat at the human delegation table. It was small compared to the other sections, reminding everyone that humans were the newest and least important members of the galactic community. Around the circle, representatives from 14 major species watched and waited. High Chancellor Vexthar of the Zephyrian Empire stood up first. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. His people had ruled large parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. When he spoke, a computer translated his clicking sounds into English. Human. Ambassador, Vexthar said, you arrive at an important moment. Your species stands at a crossroads. Choose wisely, and humans will survive as part of galactic civilization. Choose poorly and face extinction. Jake said nothing. He had learned that sometimes silence was the best response to threats. Prime. Scholar Yildana of the Crystalline Collective rose next. Her body was made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The collective was older than the Zephyrian Empire and considered themselves the most intelligent species in the galaxy. The Kree. Human species shows concerning levels of aggression, Yildana said. Her thoughts were transmitted directly into the translation system. Our analysis indicates that humans require guidance to develop properly. This generous offer may be their only path to survival. More alien leaders spoke. Each one had the same message with different words. Humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed to grow without control. The Hive Queen Zixara clicked her mandibles in what might have been laughter. Her insect-like body was covered in hard shell plates. The humans defeated the Ragnari, she said. This was not supposed to happen. Young species do not defeat elder warriors. Jake listened to it all. He watched the alien faces around the room. Some were angry, some were scared. All of them were united in their belief that humans needed to be stopped. Finally, Chancellor Vexthar stood again. The Galactic Council has prepared the final accord. These are the terms for human integration into galactic society. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. Text scrolled past in dozens of alien languages, with English translation appearing at the bottom. Jake read the terms carefully. With each line, his anger grew. Humans would give up 70% of their colony worlds. The human fleet would be reduced to less than 100 ships. All human military technology would be shared with the Galactic Council. Human expansion into new star systems would require permission from alien authorities. Most insulting of all human worlds would be monitored by galactic peacekeepers. Alien soldiers would watch over human populations to make sure they followed galactic law. In exchange, Vexthar continued, Earth will be spared from orbital bombardment. Human civilians will be allowed to live under galactic protection. General, Adams leaned forward in his chair. His face was red with anger. Protection! You mean slavery! Mind your tone, human, Vexthar replied. You are guests here. Helen Martinez touched Jake's arm. The terms are worse than we expected, she whispered. They're not trying to integrate us. They're trying to destroy us as an independent species. Jake nodded. He had hoped the aliens might be reasonable. That fear might make them harsh, but not completely hostile. He had been wrong. You have 24 hours to consider the terms, Prime Scholar Yildana announced. Tomorrow, you will give your answer. As the session ended, aliens began to leave the hall in small groups. Many of them talked in low voices, glancing back at the human delegation. Jake could guess what they were saying. They were wondering if humans would be smart enough to accept reality. Jake and his team were escorted to guest quarters in another part of the station. The rooms were comfortable but felt like a cage. Guards waited outside their doors. Not to protect them, Jake realized, but to watch them. They think they have us trapped, Pete said once they were alone. Maybe they do, Helen replied. The numbers. Don't lie. 3,000 alien ships against our 800. Even if our ships are better, we can't win that fight. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the alien fleet. The ships hung in space like predators waiting to strike. Each one represented thousands of alien crew members ready to destroy human civilization. But Jake was thinking about more than numbers. He was thinking about history, about all the times in Earth's past when someone had told humans they had no choice but to surrender, about all the times humans had proven them wrong. They made one mistake, Jake said. What's that? Pete asked. Jake turned back to his team. They think fear will make us reasonable. They don't understand that fear makes humans dangerous. Helen looked confused. Jake, what are you thinking? I'm thinking about what happens if we say no, Jake replied. Not just to their terms, but to the whole idea that they get to decide humanity's future. Pete smiled for the first time since they had arrived. That would certainly surprise them. It would also probably get us all killed, Helen pointed out. Maybe, Jake said. But maybe not. These aliens have been playing politics for thousands of years. They know how to threaten and negotiate and make deals. What they don't know is how to fight a species that has nothing left to lose. As night fell on Nexus Prime, Jake stared out at the stars and made his choice. Tomorrow, the Galactic Council would get their answer. It just wouldn't be the answer they expected. The second day of negotiations began with false hope. Jake Morrison walked into the Grand Assembly Hall carrying a data pad with humanity's response to the final accord. The alien delegates watched him with interest, expecting either surrender or desperate pleading. They got neither. The human government has reviewed your terms, Jake announced as he stood in the center of the hall. We have prepared a counter-proposal. Chancellor Vexthar's forearms moved in what Jake had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of a shrug. Speak, human, though I doubt you have anything meaningful to offer. Jake activated his data pad. A new holographic display appeared, showing different terms entirely. Humanity proposes mutual recognition of current territorial claims. We suggest the establishment of fair trade agreements between all species. We offer to join a defensive alliance against external threats to the galaxy. The silence that followed was complete. Then, slowly, alien voices began to rise in disbelief. Mutual recognition? Prime Scholar Yildana's crystal body flickered with what Jake now knew was anger. Humans propose equality with species that have existed for millions of years? Your expansion into space is barely a century old, added the delegate from the Mantis Confederation. You have no right to demand equal status. Chancellor Vexithar stood up, all forearms spread wide. This is absurd. Humans will accept the final accord as written, or face the consequences. There is no other option. General Pete Adams leaned back in his chair and smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Consequences? Like the fleet you have surrounding our space? Exactly like that, Vexthar replied. 3,000 warships, human. More firepower than your species has ever imagined. Accept our generosity while you still can. Helen Martinez had been quietly taking notes during the exchange. Now she looked up and spoke in a calm voice that somehow carried clearly through. The large hall. 3,000 ships, she repeated. That's an interesting number. It represents about 60% of your combined military strength, doesn't it? Several alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. The exact size of their fleets was supposed to be classified information. How would humans know such things? Asked. The Hive Queen Zixara, her mandibles clicking nervously. We pay attention, Jake replied. While you've been planning this meeting, we've been watching and learning. Did you think we would come here blind? Prime Scholar Yildana's light patterns changed to show confusion. Humans lack the intelligence networks necessary for such surveillance. Pete Adams laughed, a harsh sound that made several aliens flinch. Lady, you have no idea what humans are capable of when we put our minds to it. Jake walked closer to the center of the hall, where the holographic displays showed both human and alien proposals side by side. The contrast was clear. The aliens wanted domination. Humans wanted partnership. Let me ask you something, Jake said. looking around at all the alien faces. "Why are you really here? What are you actually afraid of?" "We fear nothing," Vexthar declared, but his translator couldn't hide the uncertainty in his voice. "Really?" Jake asked. "Then why bring your entire fleet to threaten one small species? Why not send a single ship with your demands?" The hall erupted in angry alien voices. Translators struggled to keep up with the flood of clicks, buzzes, and harmonic tones. Through it all, Jake stood calmly in the center, waiting for the noise to die down. When silence returned, he continued, "You're afraid because 3 months ago, humans did something impossible. We defeated the Ragnari invasion fleet, warriors who had never lost a major battle in their entire history." The Ragnari were overconfident, the delegate from the void. Touched whispered, his form barely visible even in the bright lights of the hall. "Were they?" Jake asked. "Or did they simply run into something they had never encountered before? A species that fights differently than anything else in the galaxy?" Yildana's crystal form pulsed rapidly. "Human military tactics are crude and inefficient. Victory against the Ragnari was likely due to luck rather than skill." Jake smiled, and something about that expression made the temperature in the hall seem to drop. "Would you like to test that theory?" The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Every alien in the hall understood what Jake was suggesting. Not negotiation, not surrender. War. Helen Martinez stood up and activated her own data pad. "Before anyone makes any hasty decisions, perhaps you should consider some additional facts." New data appeared on the holographic display. Ship movements, supply lines, and tactical positions spread across dozens of star systems. "While your fleets have been gathering around human space," Helen continued, "your borders have become very thin. The Devourers beyond the galactic rim have been unusually active lately. Deep space monitoring stations have detected at least 40 scout ships in the past week." Several alien delegates began talking rapidly to their assistants. The Devourers were a constant threat from outside the galaxy. They consumed entire worlds and left nothing behind. Every few years, they sent scouts to probe galactic defenses. "Impossible," Vexithar said, but he was already receiving urgent messages from his own people. "Our border fleets would have detected any intrusion." "What border fleets?" Pete Adams asked innocently. "The ones currently pointing guns at Earth?" The realization hit the alien delegates like a physical blow. In their eagerness to threaten humanity, they had left their own worlds defenseless. Jake watched their faces change as the implications became clear. Fear was replacing anger. Uncertainty was replacing confidence. "The Void Walkers in the dark nebulae have also been more active," Helen added helpfully. "Strange energy readings from the Horsehead Nebula suggest they might be preparing another expansion wave." More urgent messages began flowing between the alien delegates and their home worlds. The Void Walkers were even worse than the Devourers. They didn't just destroy civilizations. They erased them completely, leaving behind only empty space where star systems used to exist. Chancellor Vexthar tried to regain control of the situation. "Even if these threats are real, it changes nothing. Humans will accept the final accord." Jake looked around the hall one more time, at the alien faces now filled with worry about their own survival, at the mighty species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years and suddenly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. "No," he said simply, "we won't." The two words fell into absolute silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the translator system seemed to hesitate before converting Jake's declaration into alien languages. Then Jake turned and walked toward the exit. Pete Adams and Helen Martinez followed him without a word. "Human!" Vexthar's voice cracked like a whip. "You cannot simply leave. The terms must be accepted." Jake stopped at the doorway and looked back at the assembly of the most powerful beings. In the galaxy? They looked smaller somehow, less impressive than they had when he first arrived. "Chancellor," Jake said, "let me explain something about humans that you clearly don't understand. We don't accept terms. we negotiate them. And if you're not willing to negotiate as equals, then we have nothing more to discuss. As the human delegation walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall, behind them, the galaxy's leaders began to panic. Emergency communications flew between ships as commanders realized their critical mistake. While they had been playing games with humanity, real threats had been moving in the darkness. And for the first time in galactic history, the prey had walked away from the predators. Jake Morrison stopped walking when he reached the corridor outside the Grand Assembly Hall. Behind him, he could hear confused alien voices getting louder. Chancellor Vexthar was shouting orders. Prime Scholar Yildana was demanding explanations. The carefully planned meeting was falling apart. "Jake," Helen Martinez said quietly, "are you sure about this?" Before Jake could answer, his communicator buzzed. It was a priority message from Admiral Kate Sullivan on Earth. Jake accepted the transmission. Ambassador Morrison, Kate's voice, was tight with stress. "We're detecting massive movement in the alien fleet. They're powering up weapon systems. I think they're preparing to attack." Jake smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Perfect timing, Admiral. Tell all human ships to go to alert status, but don't target anything yet. We're not quite ready for that." "Ready for what?" Kate asked. "To show our new friends exactly what they're dealing with," Jake replied. General Pete Adams was checking his own communicator. Intelligence reports were flowing in from human agents across the galaxy. "Jake, it's even better than we hoped. The alien fleets are in complete chaos. Half of them are demanding immediate withdrawal to protect their home, worlds." Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device that looked like a standard data pad. He pressed a button on the side, and suddenly the corridor around them filled with holographic displays. "What is that?" Helen asked. "Insurance," Jake replied. "For the past 6 months, while the aliens have been planning their ultimatum, human intelligence has been conducting Operation Silent Watch. The holograms showed detailed technical specifications of every major alien ship class, weapon systems, shield generators, engine configurations, and most importantly, weak points in their designs." "How did we get this information?" Helen asked, though she was already beginning to understand. "The same way humans have always gotten information about their enemies," Pete said. "We watched, we listened, and we learned. Every trade mission, every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange was also an intelligence-gathering operation." Jake activated more sections of the holographic display. "The Zephyrian Empire's main battlecruisers have a critical design flaw in their primary power coupling. One precise hit can disable their entire weapon grid. The Crystalline Collective's ships look impressive, but their crystal hulls become brittle when exposed to specific frequency pulses." More data filled the air around them. Tactical analyses, battle simulations, and probability calculations painted a very different picture than the one the aliens believed. "Even the Hive Queen's organic ships have vulnerabilities," Jake continued. "Their bio-neural networks can be disrupted by electromagnetic interference. 60 seconds of the right frequency, and their entire ship becomes a floating piece of dead meat." Helen stared at the information surrounding them. "This is incredible. But Jake, they still have 3,000 ships to our 800. Numbers matter in space combat." "Do they?" Pete asked. "Let me show you something interesting." He activated another display that showed fleet coordination patterns. "The aliens have never fought together before. Each species uses different tactics, different communication systems, different command structures. It takes them an average of 43 seconds to coordinate any joint action." "Human fleet response time?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. 12 seconds, Pete replied with satisfaction. "Our ships can calculate jump coordinates, target enemy vessels, and execute tactical strikes in 12 seconds. We can hit them 3 times before they can respond once." Jake began walking again, and the holographic displays moved with them. Other beings in the corridor, mostly station staff and minor diplomatic personnel, stared in amazement at the floating information. But the real advantage, Jake said as they approached their shuttle, isn't in our technology or our tactics. It's in our psychology. Helen looked confused. What do you mean? The aliens fight to maintain their empires, Jake explained. They fight to protect their status and their power. When things get difficult, their first instinct is to protect what they have. And humans? She asked. Pete answered with a grim smile. Humans fight to win. When things get difficult, our first instinct is to hit harder. They reached the shuttle bay where their ship was waiting. Jake paused at the airlock and activated his communicator again. Admiral Sullivan, please patch me through to the Galactic Council's communication system. I want to speak to all the alien ships simultaneously. Jake, what are you planning? Kate asked. I'm going to give them something to think about, Jake replied. A few moments later, Kate's voice returned. You're connected. Every ship in the alien fleet can hear you. Jake took a deep breath and began to speak. He knew his words were being translated into dozens of alien languages and broadcast to thousands of alien crew members. This is Ambassador Morrison speaking to the combined alien fleet. I want to make something very clear. The human delegation is leaving this station. We reject the final accord completely. We will not surrender our worlds, reduce our fleet, or accept alien monitors on human planets. He paused, letting that sink in before continuing. If you attack human space, you will eventually win. The mathematics are clear. But by the time you finish destroying our 800 ships, at least 60% of your combined fleet will be wreckage floating in space. In the background, Jake could hear confused alien voices as his message was received. Some were angry, others sounded worried. While you're bleeding your fleets dry against Earth's defenses, I wonder what will happen to your undefended home worlds. The Devourers have been very active lately. The Void Walkers are moving in the dark spaces between stars. How long do you think it will take them to notice that your border fleets are gone? Jake's voice became harder, more threatening. Human military doctrine is simple. If we're going to die, we're taking as many enemies with us as possible. Every human ship is equipped with quantum destabilizers. Every colony has orbital defense platforms armed with antimatter charges. We don't surrender, and we don't run away. The den. Shuttle Bay had become very quiet. Even the alien workers had stopped what they were doing to listen. Here's what's going to happen, Jake continued. The human delegation is leaving. When you're ready to negotiate as equals, you know how to contact us. Until then, humanity will continue to expand, explore, and defend our interests as we see fit. Jake cut the communication and looked at his companions. Helen looked worried. Pete looked excited. Both reactions were appropriate. That was either very brave or very stupid, Helen said. Sometimes there's no difference, Jake replied as they boarded their shuttle. As their ship detached from Nexus Prime and prepared to jump to hyperspace, Jake received one last message from Admiral Sullivan. Jake, you should see this. The alien fleet is breaking apart. Some ships are heading back to their home territories. Others are forming defensive groups. A few are still pointing weapons at each other. I've never seen anything like it. Jake settled into his seat as the shuttle entered hyperspace. Through the window, he could see the stars stretching into lines as they accelerated away from the Galactic Council's headquarters. Admiral, he said into his communicator, I think we just reminded the galaxy of something they had forgotten. What's that? That humans don't ask permission to exist,